Welcome to this beginner's guide to the Fury Warrior specialization in World of Warcraft. If you're new to the game or looking to try out a Fury Warrior, then you've come to the right place. In this video, we'll cover the basics of Fury Warrior gameplay, including their abilities, talents, and rotations. The intended audience for this video are people new to the Fury spec and want a better understanding why Fury plays the way it does, instead of blindly copying a build from a website, looking at a stat priority list, and then randomly hitting buttons. By the end of this guide, you'll hopefully have a better understanding of how to play this spec and be ready to charge into battle with confidence. So let's get started. For the sake of this video, I'll be using the two most popular Fury Warrior single target raid specs, the Raging Blow build and the Annihilator build, taken directly from the Wowhead website, and give a basic understanding how to play each and the differences between them. A link to the website can be found in the description below. Your first goal is getting to the point where you can maintain enrage 100% of the time. The Fury Warrior's mastery is Unshackled Fury, which increases the damage you do while you have enrage up. Depending on your mastery levels, having enrage drop off is a 20 to 30% plus damage loss, which is huge. Since enrage is so important, let's first go over ways to become enraged and the talents that enhance it. The skills Rampage, which is your rage dump ability, and Onslaught with the Tenderized talent will always cause you to become enraged. Bloodthirst has a 30% chance to enrage you, and if you have the talent Fresh Meat, then Bloodthirst will always enrage you the first time you use it on a new target. Talents that boost the effectiveness of enrage are Improved Enrage, that gives you 15% haste and 10% movement speed. War Paint, that makes enrage a small defensive buff that causes you to take 10% less damage. Focus and Chaos, that causes your auto attacks to never miss while enraged. And Tenderize, that makes enrage last 2 seconds longer, which greatly improves your chances to maintain 100% uptime. To maintain enrage, generating rage quickly is key. Rampage costs 80 rage, and with the Tenderized talent, enrage lasts 6 seconds. Onslaught has a cooldown of 18 seconds, reduced by your haste, and guarantees an enrage with the Tenderized talent. A side note, if the cooldown time is green for an ability, then it is able to be reduced with haste, so that leaves a 12-second or smaller window where you need to maintain enrage with Rampage or a Bloodthirst proc. This is what makes haste so valuable for Fury Warriors. Faster hits equals more rage generation equals more rampages. Once you get your haste levels to a point where you can comfortably maintain enrage, then you'll want to go for mastery, since it'll be a straight damage boost for everything at all times, since you'll always have enrage up. Alright, so now we know how important enrage is, what causes us to become enraged, the talents that enhance enrage, and a basic understanding of stat priorities to maintain enrage uptime and increase its damage buff. When playing Fury, be sure to have Berserker stance on. With that in mind, let's start looking at the talent trees. Starting with the class side, or the left tree, we see the two builds look very similar, except you'll switch out Pain and Gain, Honed Reflexes, and Bitter Immunity in the Raging Blow build to take Crushing Force and Barbaric Training with the Annihilator build for the improved slam damage. For the Fury tree, or the right tree, you'll notice the Raging Blow build favors the right side of the tree, and Annihilator favors the left. The talents that remain consistent outside of the core center talents are ones that enhance your executes and the previously mentioned enrage talents. Now let's quickly dissect the Annihilator build talents and see how it differs from the Raging Blow build. We'll be moving the talent points from Ravager over to the left side to get Annihilator, since we couldn't have an Annihilator build without it, and since the Annihilator build removes Raging Blow from your skills, there's no reason to choose any talents that solely benefits Raging Blow. Instead, we'll use those 4 points to enhance Bloodthirst. Another important distinction is that the Annihilator build uses Reckless Abandon instead of Anger Management. When you use Rampage with the Reckless Abandon talent, it will transform your Bloodthirst and give you 2 charges of Bloodbath and change the icon display. Bloodbath is a supercharged version of Bloodthirst with increased damage and shorter cooldown. A benefit of Reckless Abandon is that Recklessness and Avatar will have the same cooldown of 1.5 minutes, so they can easily be macroed together to save button space. An important tip for your macro is that you want to cast Avatar first and then Recklessness, so that you get 27 seconds of Avatar instead of 20 seconds. This is due to the Berserker's Torment talent. Here's a demo of the macro with casting Avatar first and then Recklessness. This is the macro with Recklessness before Avatar. and this is the macro with Avatar before Recklessness, but no Berserker Torment talent. I'll put the macro in the description below. Now on to gameplay. Fury Warriors are known for their spamminess, but in general, the skill priorities I try to follow as closely as possible for this Annihilator build are Charge In, Recklessness and Avatar on cooldown, Rampage to Rage Dump and maintain Enrage, Execute when it procs, and Onslaught when able. My filler abilities will be Bloodbath to help with Enrage uptime, then Slam and Whirlwind. I've never gotten to the point where I needed to use Whirlwind as a filler, but it's there just in case. I'm not going to use Spirit Bastion for these demos since the purpose is to show the differences between builds, and both builds use it, so it would essentially cancel itself out. I've seen some guides mention using the 2 charges of Bloodbath before using Rampage again, but after a bit of parsing, I saw no significant difference in overall DPS with my current gear. Prioritizing Rampage over Bloodbath for me was slightly better, and I'm talking maybe a couple hundred DPS, so it didn't really matter. I recommend doing your own parse with whatever stats you have if you are looking to maximize DPS. If you don't care so much about min-maxing, then I think you'd be okay with either method. Alright, so let's wrap up this Annihilator demo and look at the results. For this 5-minute demonstration, I had no issues with maintaining Enrage and only had to use Slam a few times as a filler. Rampage did 24% of my damage, and I was able to cast it 108 times in 5 minutes. Bloodbath came in second at 16% of my damage, and Execute procs were just over 12% of my damage. I was using the 4-piece bonus, which does boost Execute procs. The new Primordial Stones combined made up 18% of my damage, which ain't too bad. This is the first time I've tested them out. Now let's dive into the Raging Blow build. We're going to drop Annihilator and the Bloodthirst talents to pick up Ravager and Raging Blow talents. Raging Blow will take place of how Bloodbath was being used in the Annihilator build as a main filler. We're also changing Reckless Abandon over to Anger Management. Anger Management reduces both Recklessness and Ravager cooldowns by 1 second for every 20 rage spent. With Rampage costing 80 rage, that means every time you use it, you'll take 4 seconds off the cooldowns and make them available a lot more often. This means there'll be slightly more cooldown management going on since Ravager is cast separately, but you can still macro Recklessness and Avatar together and use it whenever one of them comes off cooldown. But after the first use, the timers will differ because of Anger Management's timer reduction. And with that, let's get into the demonstration. The skill priorities I try to follow as closely as possible with the Raging Blow build is Ravager, Recklessness plus Avatar, Charge In, then Rampage to Rage a Dump and maintain Enrage. Execute when it procs, Onslaught when able. The one difference between the Annihilator and Raging Blow builds is it can be beneficial to cast Recklessness before your opening charge, so that charge benefits from the 100% increased rage generation. Raging Blow will be the main filler, and if you run out of charges, then use Bloodthirst and lastly Whirlwind. I very rarely get to the point where I need to Bloodthirst as a filler, similar to Slam with the Annihilator build. For the Raging Blow build, Rampage will have more of a priority than it did in the Annihilator build because it will be reducing your cooldowns from Anger Management. Ravager's Hurricane talent is a nice bump in damage, not to mention the extra rage generation that Ravager will give you, so you want to use it as often as you can. Let's finish up this 5-minute demonstration and look at the results. Rampage made up almost 28% of my damage with 99 uses, Raging Blow was 20% of my damage, and Execute procs came in just under 14% of my damage. Within the 5 minutes, I was able to get in 8 Ravagers and Recklessness uses, thanks to Anger Management. What I found interesting is that for the 2 5-minute demos I did, I had almost the same DPS with Raging Blow barely inching out ahead. Keep in mind this was on a stationary target where I was not having to dodge swirlies or move out of the fire. In a raid or dungeon environment, there will likely be a bigger difference between the builds. I believe the general consensus currently is that Raging Blow is slightly better, but again, if you're someone that doesn't care about min-maxing and you prefer playing one build over the other, then you should be fine either way without losing too much. And there you have it, folks, the basics of the single target talent builds for a Fury Warrior. I hope this guide has been helpful for those of you who are new to the game or considering playing a warrior. After all, they are the best class. Just remember, mastering the Fury Warrior specialization or any spec takes practice and patience, but with the right knowledge and strategy, you'll be topping the DPS charts, and there's nothing more important than topping DPS charts. This is my first class specialization guide, so if you liked it and would like to see more, then like, subscribe, and leave a comment with what spec you'd be interested in seeing. I play all classes. Thank you for watching, and best of luck on your adventures in Azeroth.